Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 1419, written by Jeffrey. Gaming and editing across timelines. So this is about experiencing a jump to a new timeline, presumably after experiencing a death in the previous timeline. The idea being that rather than dying and either blanking out of existence or experiencing some afterlife, people will simply jump to a parallel timeline, one that recently branched off from their existing timeline before some event that led to their death. Often this results in things being slightly but noticeably different, leading to confusion and causing speculation that they just jumped into a new timeline. I've always found this intriguing and fun to speculate on, but it does make me wonder what happens when one gets really old. But anyway, that's not what I'm writing about. I had an experience a few weeks ago in which I seem to have experienced this, but the other way around. I seem to have experienced another part of myself, a parallel timeline self, jumping into my life. One thing I do as a hobby is make videos of gaming experiences. Not just play video games, but cinematic videos using the gaming world as my construction set. This can be quite engaging. So, the other evening, I was taking a shower before bed, and as I was sitting in the shower, letting the water fall on my head, I was reminiscing about the gameplay and editing I had just done that evening. That was all normal, except that I suddenly realized that was not my memory. I had not done that gameplay or the editing that I had such a strong, vivid memory of. The realization of this made my head spin. I suddenly felt a sort of vertigo. I felt unanchored to my reality. I was not on drugs or drinking, and I haven't for a long time. It really slammed me hard. I wasn't sure what was real, but I knew that those weren't my memories. I got out of the shower, still feeling unsteady, and walked into the bedroom, and my wife started speaking to me, asking me a question. It was a bit of a struggle, but I was able to answer, and in doing so, it brought me back more solidly into the normal reality. As I laid down in bed, I felt the memory of, or should I say, the false memory, fade away. I could remember having the experience, but not any details of the memory anymore. It was like the memory of a dream will fade upon awakening. In speculating, I wondered if some part of me hadn't died that evening of a massive heart attack or something and then jumped into my timeline. It made me think that maybe I should take better care of myself, as I thought that while I'm okay, I just jumped timelines. But what of my wife and family in the other timeline, and the pain they must be suffering? Well, I hope you all find this interesting. It's a lot to think about. Case file 1419. Gaming and editing across timelines. It's something I think about all the time. Have I died myself in some timeline, and then coalesced with the other copies of me that exist in all the realms? Actually, by the sheer magnitude of copies that must exist, because there's so many alternate universes, I think we all have at least a few times. But that sorrow that must be experienced by our loved ones in those universes where we did die, that haven't even the faintest clue about quantum immortality, it's just so sad to dwell on that, isn't it? As far as the transition and fusion process, I think it's similar to in the movie The One with Jet Li. Mine is gaining superhuman speed and strength, that's fictional. I think it's just informational fusion. You don't gain extra abilities, but if one copy dies somewhere, then its life experiences and memories transfer and fuse together with all the other copies of you that exist everywhere else. It's just copy and pasted to all those other universes, and it happens pretty quickly. But sometimes I think if you're conscious at that moment when it happens, things can get jumbled up in your head. Memories you don't actually remember having, now you suddenly remember. Or maybe you misremember a memory, you remember it differently than it was. Maybe that's often why we misremember things in the past. It's not that our brains damage the memories by thinking of them, but that they physically get rewired when a death of ours occurs in a different universe. And then that information is written into our brains physically. So people with really crystal clear long-term memory then are people who rarely die in any universes at all. But people who misremember all the time, they're dying all the time. Kind of a gloomy thought, I suppose. But this is just speculation. Maybe it's not how it works, but it makes some sense if it was the case. Definitely makes you think either way. Bonus file, written by Brideofthelivingdead. When the Pillows Whisper. About a year ago, a woman wandered into the office I work for, but I'm rarely in because I work in the community. I had just happened to be there that afternoon to fax paperwork. She hands me a card and says she's a psychic massage therapist. I'm like, alrighty. She then is like, give me your hand and I'll show you how it works. So I give this random woman I've never met before my hand, and she starts to massage it, because why not? She then looks me in the face and says, stop taking your shoes off when you're driving. You're going to get in an accident. Also, your neck hurts because you shouldn't be sleeping with that many pillows. She bestowed me with some other weird tidbits about my habit of sitting on my left foot, and then she leaves a few cards in the office and pieces out. My coworkers that were in the office were standing there like, what the hell just happened? I was convinced one of them was messing with me. Now normally, I would write this all off as bullcrap, but I drive all day. Depending on the season, I either wear clogs or big muck boots that can easily be disinfected. I always take my shoes off because they slip on and off when I get in my truck, because it's easier for me to drive that way all day. It's something I've never told anyone. It's always just been a weird habit, and also something I only do at work because I don't drive that much when I'm not working. I still have her card, but I haven't scheduled a psychic massage yet. Case notes for the bonus file. When the pillows whisper. If someone knows a detail of your life that is hyper-specific, and that you've never told anyone and no one has ever seen happen, well, it can't possibly be a prank, or of the natural world, unless this random fake psychic works for the NSA or something and is observing you through hidden cameras built into the frame of your truck, something along those lines of improbability. Let's just say the odds of that are low. The truth is, there are a lot of fake psychics, mentalists, and so on out there. It's a lucrative scam, so unscrupulous people do it. But there are real ones too, usually the ones that don't charge money or at least charge very little. But always beware, it's probably more likely that you'll encounter a fake one than a real one, just randomly going about your day. Bonus file, written by lawlermon, In the Silence of Dawn. My mother, brother, and I all live with my very elderly, late-stage dementia grandpa. My mom was his caretaker and was certified, etc. But when my grandfather died, it was just me and my mom that still lived with him. I distinctly remember waking up at like 4:30 or 5 a.m. randomly, something I very rarely do. I also felt weird and felt sad, but I felt like a force leading my eyes towards the window. It felt familiar, like it was my grandpa, but I shrugged it off and went back to bed. I woke up a few hours later for school, and my mom came into my room and closed my door and told me that my grandfather had died that morning at the same time I had woken up. My grandpa, who loved us all, but was very old school, let me know he was leaving when he died, but also put me back to sleep so I didn't have to deal with his passing at that moment. Apparently, the ambulance, my uncle, and my mom were all there through the night. My mom and uncle grieving and my grandfather made sure I didn't see. I was in high school at the time. I've never been able to explain it. It's almost like I had a weird connection with death. A similar experience with my dad's passing happened just a couple years later. I visited my dad with my cousin. She wanted to come with her because my dad had been dealing with his shortcomings poorly, drinking himself into a stupor more often than not. When I visited him, I told him that after my first year of college, I was going to come back and visit him, and that I wanted him to be there when I did. However, I knew he was going to die. So when I left his house, I texted my brother and told him exactly this. Hey, I don't think Dad is going to be around much longer. Come visit him. Which is out of character for me. My brother visited him that next morning, also out of character for him, and found him dead in his living room. He had died the previous night, no more than a few hours after I left his house. Plus, he texted my other brother, who was a few hours away at the time, and told him he left immediately to come home, and my mom told me that something was wrong with my dad and I knew he had died. Case notes for the bonus file, In the Silence of Dawn. So when you pass, how do you want others to remember you and to feel in general? There is an unavoidable melancholy that would overcome your passing if you were loved. You can't shake that away as it's part of the human experience. Change is never easy, especially when it's leaving something behind forever, something that you loved. But that said, I think we'd all want our loved ones who remain to embrace the life they still have. And of course, this is without contemplating quantum immortality at all. But, it makes me wonder if I did die. Again, outside of quantum immortality, let's just say this is the one universe. Well, I would want my funeral to be a happy place, like serve actually delicious food, for instance. That would be a good step. Play some funny music, something to lighten the mood. I guess it's hard for people to do that, but if it's what the person who died would want, I don't know. Leave it in the will if they check that before the funeral. And now time for the quote of the day. The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. Isaac Newton. And boy, this is a statement from probably the smartest human being to have ever lived. The dude literally invented a new form of mathematics on a dare over summer. That's insane. Most people struggle to even understand the math that's already been established and invented or discovered, however you want to frame it. Imagine just coming up with it on your own, just like that. That should be impossible, basically, but no. Some people were that smart. It's unprocessable. But when someone even that smart understands, and often this is the case, there's a Dunning-Kruger effect where if you're not that smart, you tend to think that you know a lot more than you do, or that you're more competent than you are. But the more smart you are, the more you realize, I know basically nothing at all. The smartest person to have ever lived is still ignorant of like 99.999 to 20 digits % of all the knowledge that there is and could be. And that's not even counting the knowledge we don't even know exists yet. So yeah, if you ever feel dumb, don't worry. We're all basically dumb relative to the abundance of what is out there. Still try to gain more knowledge. It's very useful. It benefits ourselves and other people too. So thirst for knowledge. Just understand that, really, you can't know it all. And that's okay. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.